Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the garden.
I hope you made good use of this 5-minute break. TATANKA BRICCA, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
I just want to show while we can, this is my, oh, it disappears somehow. This is my absentee ballot in California for the governor's race. I will be filing it. I just wanted to preserve it for this call. TATANKA, you are also in California, and you have a great lineup on the environment. So please take it away.
Thank you, Harvey. Welcome everybody to the environmental section. I want to welcome my co-host, Nat Farfan. I saw you come in a while ago. Are you here, Nat? Please come and be with me. My co-moderator. Okay, says she's the co-host now. So we have an incredible group of speakers here. I do want to let the tech people know that, welcome, Nat.
Thank you.
Yes, I do want to let the tech people know that Denny Zane, former mayor of Santa Monica and head of Move LA, is one of two of our speakers that is being told when he comes in now that it's reached attendance limit and he can't get in. So I just want to let the tech people know that. I know that's not the case, but it's happening to people on the link now. Okay, so welcome everyone to this call. I want Nat and I have 2.5 minutes each to introduce ourselves, and then we have a great panel of people. So I'll go first, and then I'll introduce you, Nat, unless you want to go first. Okay, so I am presently working as volunteer on this angle with the Romero Institute of California in Santa Cruz with Danny Sheehan, Sarah Nelson, Ben Eichert, and team. We have teamed up now with Dolores Huerta and Lori Pesante and Camila Chavez and the entire team of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, who are partnering with us to get a California Green New Deal passed. In the midst of this, we have a recall election, a very anti-democratic measure, basically aimed, I believe, at us, because a lot of Exxon money going into this. And so we urge everyone in the state of California to vote no on that recall. It is imperative that we have a Democratic governor in office. So when we pass this next year, he will sign it into law. The present rules are such, if the election were held today and the election is less than 3 weeks away, that, in fact, it's only 2 weeks away, that someone with 10% of the vote would beat Governor Newsom with 48% unless we get one vote over 50%. It's critical that people show up and understand those issues. It's the subterfuge they're using. They can't win in 2022 or 2024, so they're going to this. All right. So I am going to now introduce Nat Farfan. Nat, will you introduce yourself, please? And then we will get on with the process.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm honored to be here myself. Dolores Huerta is someone I look up to, and I look up to all of you here actually trying to move this legislation forward. I am part of the coalition of Indigenous Peoples Movement. I'm a water protector, and I'm here to help in any way that I can.
Thank you very much, Nat. I am now going to introduce the Reverend Deborah Johnson. Are you with us, Deborah? Rev D?
She is not.
She is not. Oh, wow. She's one of the many who couldn't get in. Okay. So if she comes in later, please let me know. Next, is Heather Booth among us?
Yes, she is.
Okay, Heather.
And I see
welcome.
My champion, Andrea Miller, and it's spectacular to be part of this lineup, this amazing group on this roundtable, both the speakers, the organizers, including my longtime friend, Joel Siegel, but also the participants, the 190 and more people who are listening in, of those who could get in. It's your organizing and the millions others around the country that brought us to a historic moment to make amongst the greatest change that we've ever had in at least my lifetime, which is now 75 years. We stand to have investment in our communities of $3.5 trillion, including a civilian climate corps that Alexandria Cortez has promoted, as well as Senator Sanders, for cutting child poverty in half with the extension of the child tax credits, for senior care, expanding Medicare, for good paying jobs, a pathway to citizenship, and taxing the ultra wealthy to make them pay for it and pay their fair share. All of this is possible because of the organizing that you've all been doing. We also see the advances we've been making towards democracy and expanding democracy, which we need to do in the demonstrations last week. But we're also on a knife edge, because if we don't seize the moment and keep organizing, we'll end up with Jim Crow insurrectionists who seek to limit our vote, ignore climate change, and extend the racial and economic inequality that's destroying lives right now around the country. It is up to us. It is whether we move for our hopes or our fears. All of this gets focused through the electoral process also as we move our power in the streets, also into elections. And the 2022 elections are already upon us. There are already states where Republican-controlled legislatures are redistricting in order to deny our votes and deny our ability to vote. In Georgia, as you well know, they're even denying the right to provide water for those standing in line to vote. And I thought one of the civil disobedience actions we might consider is getting thousands of people and lawyers ready to provide water for those standing in line to vote, and let them come after us. It's one thing to arrest one, but two, but thousands, and we can challenge these laws. It all depends on what we do. All of you on the call, you've helped to bring us to this point. And now we can change history if we continue to organize, build our electoral power, and act together. Thank you for the summit. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for moderating this.
Thank you, Heather, founder of Citizen Action. I'm going to introduce the first three, and then Nat will follow with the next three. Emily Worth, Food and Water Watch, are you among us?
Yes, I'm here.
Terrific, you're on.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to everyone who organized this event. It's really an honor to be here with so many amazing allies fighting for a livable climate for not only for all of us, but for future generations. So I'm the organizing director at the nonprofit organization Food and Water Watch. We work to protect our essential food and water resources, but we see climate as a critical threat to both food and water. And so we've been working over the past decade to move our elected officials to support policies to stop the extraction and use of fossil fuels and move us to 100% renewable energy future. We really are putting our organizing energy into stopping fracking for oil and gas, all these new fossil fuel infrastructure projects that disproportionately harm low-income communities and communities of color. Because as a recent IPCC report made clear, we simply cannot afford to appease the fossil fuel industry and build more fossil fuel projects if we're going to abate catastrophic climate change and what we're already seeing around us with horrific hurricanes, wildfires, and droughts. One thing we're doing that absolutely cannot continue is the subsidizing of this mature fossil fuel industry. We are giving $15 billion of government financial support each year to the fossil fuel industry. And right now, this critical opportunity that Heather just talked about in this budget reconciliation bill gives us an opportunity to try to get fossil fuel subsidies removed as part of this bill moving through Congress. But what we know and what recent video from an Exxon lobbyist made clear is that the fossil fuel industry is going to do everything they can to stop that from happening. And so we need to, they're going to meet with members of Congress and use all of their mechanisms to have control over what's happening. So it's really up to us at this critical time to remind our elected officials that they work for us, not the fossil fuel industry, and that we need them to take this really important step as part of this budget reconciliation bill. So I'm really excited to share that at Food and Water Watch, we recently launched a climate liaison program with our longtime incredible ally, Progressive Democrats of America. Through this program, we're identifying people who will agree to regularly and persistently meet with their members of Congress to push for the kind of bold climate policies that the science supports. And in the short term, that's removing fossil fuel subsidies through this budget reconciliation bill. This program really comes from a long-term general congressional liaison program that PDA has started. And so what we're doing is just really focusing in on climate and climate policy and working together to ensure that all of the people willing to take on becoming a regular liaison with their member of Congress have all of the background and information that they need to advocate for these policies, and that they have all the latest information about what's going on with the timing of the legislation. So this is just getting started. We're really excited about it. And would love for people to get more involved so that we can really make progress on changing climate policy before it's too late. And so I know the amazing Alan MINSKY with PDA is going to be part of this panel. He's going to share more information, including a sign-up link he just put in the chat. And I encourage everyone to join us and at minimum, contact your member of Congress and ask them to support removing fossil fuel subsidies as part of this budget reconciliation bill. So thank you all so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. I am going to use this at 2 minutes and then at 2.5 minutes. And at 2.5 minutes, you need to sum up. Okay, thank you very much. We're all doing very well. Our next speaker was supposed to be Dolores, but we played her 3-minute video at the very beginning of this. So we're not going to use that. Betsy Nichols JOSIAH Edwards of Sunrise, Los Angeles. Are you with us, Josiah?
I am.
Terrific. You're up.
Hi, everyone. As introduced, my name is Josiah Edwards. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a member of Sunrise Movement, a movement of young people dedicated to stopping climate change and creating millions of good jobs in the process. From our birth in 2017 to today, we have fought to make the Green New Deal a political reality. And our efforts, like our 2018 sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's office or our recent shutdown of the White House, have succeeded in making Green New Deal legislation among the most popular in the country. Climate change is a reality that we cannot avoid. Turn on the television or hop on social media to see the devastation wrought by climate change. We are living through the crisis right now, and young people will bear the burden. As Hurricane Ida batters the Gulf South and wildfires rage in my home state of California, we see more so now more than ever the need for our political leaders to act with the urgency necessary to meet the scale of the crisis. Our futures are not political footballs. We deserve the opportunity to live whole and fulfilling lives. That's why we embarked on a campaign called Good Jobs for All, where we demanded President Biden fight for a bold, fully funded civilian climate corps that would employ 1.5 million Americans with good-paying union jobs to build new climate-resilient infrastructure to take care of each other. It would begin the decade of a Green New Deal and set us on the path toward protecting our communities and loved ones. It would restore a faith in government which had long been lost because of the failures of past leaders to act with the ambition and urgency necessary, and listen to the cries of Americans who have long suffered because of government inaction. Listen, I myself have been the victim of environmental racism. I grew up with childhood asthma. My father and brother still have asthma. I remember the frequency with which I would have nosebleeds that were completely random and unexplainable. It was only until I was older that I understood that the refineries in my community, which are responsible for perpetuating the crisis that we are in now, were also responsible for putting my health at risk, for putting my family and community's health at risk. We're fed up. We are tired of our so-called leaders compromising with white supremacist insurrectionists who have actively advanced an anti-democratic agenda. We're tired of the people who should be on our side, like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, working to advance the agenda and interests of corporate fossil fuel money as opposed to those of us who elected them. We've had enough, and this $3.5 trillion infrastructure package must move forward because it's the first step to a Green New Deal. The reason we need a united progressive movement is because they can no longer stymie the people's agenda. Our struggles are intertwined. The fight for racial justice is a fight for climate justice. It's a fight for healthcare justice. It's a fight for economic justice. As we continue to fight against the unjustness of society, as our movement shows up alongside Indigenous water protectors to stop Line 3, as we continue to demand a fully funded civilian climate corps, let's remember that change can't occur until we center those of us on the margins. Black and brown communities, the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class. So I want to thank you, Joe Segal, for bringing all of us together to elevate the fight for justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiah. Very good. It's so good to see so many young leaders in our movement. Those of us that are older are very willing to share, and some of us even pass the torch. Now I'm going to pass back to my co-host, Nat Farfan, to introduce three more folks.
Thank you. And I echo that. Josiah and other youth, keep coming forward. We need that. Next is Betsy Nichols from River Keepers Chesapeake Bay. Betsy, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Betsy Nicholas. I'm Executive Director of Water Keepers Chesapeake. Same idea though. River Keepers, Water Keepers, we're all the same thing. And I'm going to take things a little bit more to the ground level. We work in our communities, in our local communities. And I can just tell you what I was doing this morning over on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay in order to just drive back to where I live over on the western shore. I had to go through about 16 different flooded areas on roads. And that's just from normal storms that are going on. But right now we have a problem that this is the reality of everyone on the East Coast. But in our region, in the mid-Atlantic states, people through no fault of their own, nothing they have done wrong, have their homes flooded consistently, filling up their basements with raw sewage. And looking around, nobody's taking responsibility. We have a failure at all levels of government here, from the federal down to the local government. And not only are they failing to take responsibility, they're continuing to allow development that's going to hurt other families and communities that have been here. The data being used for permitting in this country is 30 to 50 years old. So even if you say that you're in compliance with permits under the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, or anything else, the data that's being used isn't useful or reliable. We have areas that have flooded with 1,000-year storms 3 times in a decade. This is unacceptable. People dying and losing their homes on a regular basis. Just what's happened in the past 2 weeks across this country, in Tennessee and now in New Orleans, looking at what we're facing. And yet we still don't have the action we need at the state level and at the local level. So this year we got a little frustrated with this and put in a new state bill requiring the use of updated data, and actually were able to get it to pass. And what this means is that for all of the Clean Water Act permits, for stormwater permits, you actually have to use current rainfall data, rather than allowing construction unfettered to go forward using data that's more than 30 years old and controlling the inappropriate amount of stormwater and storm volume in particular. The management of water across this country, from the flooding on the East Coast to the fires on the West Coast, all furthered by climate change, are having really disproportionate impacts and killing some, while others make millions and more profit. So we need to get on the ground level, working in our state and local governments, to get measures to deal with the adaptation, the implementation of these laws right now, while partnering with all the people who are working on the federal level to change the bigger structure. But we have to get some relief on the ground to make it so that we're not losing entire communities through climate change and the impacts that has on water and development and their public health. So that's where we're really focused right now. And we want to try and partner with all of the folks working at the federal level so we can have these climate solutions that make sense both at the federal level and then on the ground in our local communities.
Thank you, Betsy. Great information there. We're going on to the next speaker. Denny Zane, former mayor of Santa Monica.
No, he can't get in, so he's
No
not
worries.
on the call.
No worries. How about Hope CANOY from Indigenous Visions?
Josie's got to leave at 4 o'clock.
Okay, no worries. We'll move on to the next speaker.
It's Alan MINSKY.
Alan MINSKY from Progressive Democrats of America.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank, of course, thank you, Nat, and thank you, TATANKA, and to Joel Siegel and Andrea Miller and Harvey Wasserman and Mike Hirsch and Mike Fox and all the people who've put this together. I want to thank you so much. And I want to spend my time actually in honor of Heather Ruth in particular, doing some organizing here. And so as Emily mentioned earlier, we are partnering with Food and Water Watch on this project to have congressional climate liaisons that parallels our national congressional liaison program, but to focus in on the issues addressed at the top by the federal government in terms of climate-related policy, and in particular, the need to develop renewable energy to completely replace fossil fuel use and other dirty energy projects. And I do want to state right at the top, yes, we understand there are a number of environmental organizations that do not hold the line of being 100% zero fossil fuels. That's the one stipulation that people should understand when they sign up for this project. Food and Water Watch and PDA were both very committed to being 100% fossil fuel free and supporting solutions that are completely renewable energy, not cleaner energy, not drawing on natural gas production, but truly renewable, 100% zero fossil fuel free and non-nuclear solutions to the energy systems and how energy is used in the United States of America. And so that's the stipulation if you're interested in participating in this project. And just to clarify, we really feel, both organizations, that there have been approaches that have been embraced, for instance, by the fossil fuel industry that just lowers the level of fossil fuel production or proposes the lowering of it. And that's been tried now for decades and has gotten us pretty much nowhere. And I think if we fast forward 5 years and 10 years, we'll be in a position where everybody will be at the position that we're at now, because we have to stop using fossil fuels. There's no two ways around it. Now, we do understand, and we're very sensitive to what this means in terms of communities, often not wealthy communities, often communities of color, where there's a concentrated amount of employment in the fossil fuel industry. So we are also equally committed to making the term just transition not a hollow slogan, but making it a reality, even understanding what that means in terms of the complexities of US labor law. So we're fully committed to just transition. We're fully committed to 100% zero fossil fuel use. Again, here is the sign-up sheet again, with the idea here being about organizing. Please sign up. Now, in terms of local matters, of course, the local liaisons will have the capacity.
Alan, we need to go on to other speakers where our time.
Oh, I'm already at time. Well, there we are. Again, there'll be local input, of course, anti-environmental racism, of course. Please sign up, join it. And yes, we, of course, need to always diversify the climate movement as much as we can. Please sign up.
Thank you for all your work, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
TATANKA, should I take the next guest?
Yeah, take Rudy, and then I'll do, do you want me to, or do you?
I'll do Rudy.
Yeah, do.
Rudy Arredondo, President of National Latino Farmers and Ranchers Trade Association. Rudy, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much to everyone and all my brethren and my sisters that are part of this summit. I really want to thank Joel, who has worked with me. And one of the things that have a great concern to us is, we represent farmers, and we are in a dire crisis, and we are concerned with regard to the fact that the politicians are not going to resolve our issues. We have to do it ourselves. And so this is one of the reasons that, I really sign on with Joel, because we need to take this into our own hands and do what it is to be done. Droughts, food shortages are going to be very common. 30% of the Central Valley in California, the farmers tell me that they're going to have 30% of their land lay fallow. There's not going to be planted as a result of the drought, the flooding, wildfires that are taking place there. Some of our ranchers, they're either selling their herds and or they're going to be reducing because there isn't enough grazing for them to be able to feed their cattle. So we are very concerned about the fact that in spite of this crisis situation that we're in, exacerbated by the pandemic, and it was blatantly clear as we have been trying to get into this meeting that the technology is not as efficient or available as we need it to be, not to mention in the rural communities, it's non-existent. So we're working toward that end, and I really appreciate and hope that we can we can all get behind trying to get our issues resolved. Like I said, we are the farmers, we're the people that feed you. And if you are going to be a part of this, it's important that you take that into mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rudy. Thank you. I want to remind everybody, this is just a taste of people. So next speaker, Magdaleno Rosavila. Join us, Leno.
I'm Magdaleno Leno Rose Avila, a human rights activist working, I'm getting all these messages on my computer. I'm Magdaleno Leno Rose Avila, a human rights activist working with immigrants, organizing to protect our right to vote and our democracy, and doing all in my power to protect Mother Earth and all her creatures. Now, today, I must tell you that history can't wait. You must do today what is needed. You cannot wait until tomorrow. History is being made today. And while it is always good to be on the right side of history, it's even better to make history. And you know that climate change is real. People are suffering because of droughts, and immigrants are coming north because their crops are failing. Others are having their lives destroyed by too much rain, wildfires from hell, and historic storms. And this is the result of climate change. And now we must work together to protect Mother Earth. Our enemies are powerful. They have money, they have no conscience, and they will tell any lie in order to oppress the truth and human rights. Yesterday, we all did great work, and we should be proud of that. But today we need to do more, and we need to do it better. We need to find new tactics and strategies. And we must embrace our young leaders. Together, we must take the brave steps into the future. The enemies of freedom, they go crazy when they see us working and marching together. It drives them nuts. So let's join forces and drive them crazier than crazy can be. I'm sure you all heard of the biblical story of David and Goliath and how this small man brought down a giant warrior. And as you know, in those days, men wrote all the books. And what if women were writing the books at that time? It might have been said that Diana brought down Goliath, but that really doesn't matter now because we need both David and Diana to bring justice to America. We must build the best, strongest, most creative, and most inclusive coalition ever seen in this world. And we need your voice and leadership now. Remember, it's not about how long you lived, but what you did when you were alive. It's not about the promises you made, but the promises you keep. Today, you must raise your voice. And as Bob Marley said, get up stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight. Join us and our coalition on the road to freedom. And remember, history can't wait. History can't wait.
Thank you, Leno. Bless you. Si se puede. I need some advice from tech because we have Harvey Wasserman, EVA K Lee, Drew Glover, and Molly Basler to continue. What is our timing?
We're good. We're good.
Okay, great. You're up, Harvey.
Okay, so I changed my no nuke shirt. I'm going to very quickly say that we can't just stop fossil fuels. We do not cool this planet with radioactive fires that burn at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This does not work. Neither with thorium, which burns at 1100, and with fusion that burns at 100 million, believe it or not. We have all the energy we need with renewables, solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, ocean thermal. They all have to be done environmentally responsible, but with batteries and increased efficiency, switching to electric cars. There will actually be, in October, near Seattle, the first flight of an electric-powered passenger airplane. So the possibilities are endless, and we have the technology. We have the technology to save this world, or at least to save our place on it. Let's put it that way. The world is going to go on. The Earth is going to go on without us. But if we blow ourselves off the planet, there's no excuse. We have the ability with organic gardening and farming, with more and more veganism, and all the other things we need. But the key we need is the key, which is the raison d'etre for this phone call, which is broad-based, as Joel would say, unified progressive action. We need to get out of our silos, both our grain silos and our missile silos, and get into a completely unified movement. So those of us who don't think you can make a difference, I lived on a communal hippie farm in the 1970s. They came in and said they were going to build a nuclear plant 4 miles from our house. We said, no, you're not. We stopped them. Richard Nixon said there'd be 1,000 nuclear plants in the United States by the year 2000. There were 104. I've posted, and now there are 93, and we need to knock that number down to 0. After Fukushima, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, we know what comes next. We've got to shut all of these reactors as soon as possible and go 100% renewable to Solartopia. And we can do it. And this call is really the first step to the broad-based coalition we need to have. So thank you, Joel. And thank you also, by the way, for Smart Alec. We're going to start drafting legislation that's going to make Solartopia possible. Okay, you guys? I don't know if I talked fast enough, but I'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you. Harvey Sluggo, you're our leader, man. Thank you. That's wonderful. I pass it back to you, Nat. We have 3 more speakers.
All right. Well, thank you again, Harvey. That was amazing. Next speaker on board is EVA K. Professor of Science and Engineering at Georgia Tech, also an expert on clean, renewable energy. Eva, are you on with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Welcome.
And thank you. Thank you. I think, well, I have to thank Joe for really putting me on with all these great, passionate leaders, young and experienced leaders. I think this is really wonderful. So I am an engineering professor and directing the Center for Operations Research in Medicine and Healthcare. And really my passion and my work really focus on advancing healthcare and really providing that service for all people, and really including all the underserved, and as well as people that really cannot afford to pay, because I do believe that healthcare is a service. It really is supposed to be for everyone. So that's really important. And I'm also very passionate about the nature-oriented energy resources, everything that Harvey and Alan talk about, exactly, solar and wind and hydro, and how to optimize them and make that available to all walks of people. The extreme climate causes like many avoidable health problems, and it is also destroying the planet Earth. So this is really important that we really look at this problem and try to come up with solutions, because we've talked about that for a long time, and it is the actions that matter, and it is how it is going to really make changes in our life. So I love that some of the experts talk about data, and my work really use data to analyze risk and also decision analysis like machine learning and all of these things, and how cognitive and human behavior intertwine with it, and how do we optimize resources. And truly on the ground, I really love what Harvey just mentioned about the nuclear energy. I was on the ground in Fukushima and helping them with the disasters, the nuclear disasters, and also helping them to really, like, how do you optimize the resources of all type of energies and replace the nuclear energy by the green energy. I think that's really important. One of the project that we have done is to build a 100-bed hospital in California that uses all green energy and have zero carbon footprint. And it is possible, absolutely possible. In fact, amazingly, it's cheaper. And it is safer. Of course, it is much better to the environment. So I think this is something that we all could do. And I really think that educating the young generation, and that's part of what I do. And I think it's wonderful because I think they are the future. And everything that we do, I think that's really the way to go. And I devote my energy and skills really looking at solutions to save the planet Earth and educating all these next generation leaders. So it is an honor for me to have the opportunity to meet all of you and great people. I am a little dot, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva, and great information. We're on to the next speaker, and it is Drew Glover. Drew, are you on?
I am. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Drew Glover. I'm coming to you from Selma, Alabama. You'll have to excuse my connection because of the hurricane down in the Gulf Coast always impacts the infrastructure in Alabama, which is very in line with everything that people have been talking about up to me, which I thought was really appropriate. Today, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about creating alternative systems, which is a fantastic nonviolent way to fight against the system and make the change happen in your own community. I am a board member and owner the owner member of a local food cooperative. It's actually called the Local Farm Food Cooperative in Selma, Alabama. We're based in a small half-acre piece of land over in a place called the Mill Village neighborhood in the center of a community. And the goal here is to create alternative food systems that teach people the food cycle, the way they can get involved in growing their own food, as well as food preservation, food preparation, and healthy eating habits that are available in places like Selma, which is a food desert. Very limited access to organic and fresh vegetables, very limited access to that kind of emphasis in education. So it's a great opportunity with these alternative systems and creating cooperatives to provide people those options and skill sets. I think along with that and climate change, we just heard from Rudy Arredondo, the president of the farmers group, and he's talking about the concerns that farmers feel, whether it be the hurricanes, the heat domes, the wildfires. That's going to directly impact our food systems, accessibility to food, and food costs. So we need to be developing alternative systems to alleviate that, because we all know that the people that suffer most from climate change and those issues are people and members of the global majority. So we need to take action at every step of the way, from the grassroots up until the elected offices, to make that happen. I'm working with a diverse group of young folks. You heard from one of them earlier today, Natalie Fassian with the Ride Revived. So if you're interested in getting involved, learning more about that, learning more about the work that we do here in Selma, or learning about how to start a co-op of your own, you can contact me. My email's in the thread somewhere. But thanks a lot for the opportunity. Everyone's doing a fantastic job. Thanks to the organizers. This is great. And let's continue the work, because it's only through these conversations that we're going to be able to make stuff happen.
Wow. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that. Lots of great information there. And last but not least, on our speaker is Molly Basner, LA City Council candidate. Molly, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. And welcome. It's Basler. My name is Molly Basler. And I believe that we need a united progressive movement network coalition. That is why I'm here. I'm honored to be here. I'm an activist, community organizer, environmentalist, animal activist. And I'm so passionate about changing the world, the planet, Los Angeles, our local government, that I've stepped in to run for office. I'm running for Los Angeles City Council District 5. We need to change our local government and move in to a progressive world, right? So we need to change everything. And I believe one of the ways to do it is to step into leadership roles. I'm going up against the political machine. I am the progressive grassroots candidate, people powered. I'm not taking special interest money, so I need all the support I can get. I'm also running a green and regenerative campaign, and I'm asking my fellow candidates to do the same, a green challenge. What does that look like? It means less paper, no plastic at my events, no meat and dairy at my events, none of these, all of these ridiculous paper things we send out. We have to come up with new and innovative ways to campaign, to move through the world so we have a planet to continue to live here. We have passed the point of no return. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, has reported we have overheated, right? Our planet is too hot. Now, what we have to do is not make it worse. And we are on a trajectory of extinction. So we really have to step up, step into positions of power so we can take the lead. And that is why I'm running. So I'd really love your support. I'm also a climate reality leader. I've been doing this about 5 years now. And like I said, then decided to step into a place of leadership. So my platform, so I have a bigger voice. And possibly to create bigger changes, because it's not the speeches we make, it's the actions we take. And I ask for your support, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Molly Blazer, thank you so much.
Put yourself in the chat, Molly.
Thank you so much, Molly, and thank you all the speakers. Nat, you want to give a reflection at the end of our speakers list on what we heard? I'll do the same, and then we'll pass it on to the next act.
Absolutely. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us, who has a voice, youth, all the way to the elders. This is a widespread feeling among all of us progressive leaders, civic leaders, activists. And again, it starts with dismantling power structures. Or as Mark Carlin said, he's editor of BuzzFlash on this commentary, we need to be unrelenting in advancing a progressive agenda that results in changing hearts, minds, and most importantly, legislation. So the journey continues. I look forward to moving from trauma to sacredness. Again, I'm Nat, representing Indigenous Peoples Movement Coalition.
Thank you, Nat. It's been a pleasure working with you. And thank you, all the speakers. I mean, what I'm getting is that everybody is validating that we really do need this kind of progressive, organized movement. I mean, as organized as a progressive movement can be to get legislation done and to get things done. I know Harvey's laughing. We have a variety of governance styles here, but I like the discipline of actually getting things done on time and laughing and supporting each other while we're doing it. Harvey, do you have any thought? And then I'm going to pass it on.
Well, you've been absolutely great, TATANKA. Both of you are fantastic, Nat. And, this is a dream come true. We're actually not far behind schedule at all. If you look at we were going to finish at 4:20 with your section. We have the tools here to protect the environment. I want to point out to everybody, this is a moment and a movement. So we're going to be doing this for the next 3 years at least. We need your contacts so that when we call the next gathering, you can turn around and email to your lists. That's absolutely essential. We still have 160 people on after 3.5 hours. That's pretty amazing, actually, when you think about it. But we know we can get more. We need to be able to contact everybody on this list. I'm finishing a history of the United States as an environmental activist history. Joel has read it and he passed the quiz that I gave him afterwards. It's called The People's Spiral of U.S. History. I will send you a free PDF if you email me at solartopia@gmail.com. But TATANKA and that, you did a beautiful job, Senator Brown, as well. And we are going to continue this next month. We will do DC statehood. The month after, we'll come back to to election protection, then the environment, then social justice. And then in January, we'll have another one of these national gatherings. And Harvey,
I want to interrupt for a second.
Yes.
I just want to encourage everyone here, if you get a spark of an idea for a roundtable, I'm particularly addressing this to people of color and disadvantaged and youth. Youth, if you have an idea, please share it with us. This is our movement. This is our forum. So as Harvey says, we are combining moments to create a movement, and we will continue to do those moments indefinitely. And as Molly and everybody said, we are in an extinction event. I just want to state that there are scientists we heard of on our Zoom call with Danny Sheehan of Romero Institute, that the timing for the release at this moment, with the way the planet is heating up, the release of the giant plumes of methane from the north and the impact that it will have, one of the impacts it will have is it will take the entire equatorial region of our Earth, including the Amazon, and turn it from a net drawdown of carbon, creating all that beautiful weather, to a net addition. And the timing they've put on the methane release with that process starting is 2026. Okay, this is worse than the IPCC report, but we have our work to do. So we're thinking about how we can get our 10-year Green New Deal down to a 5-year Green New Deal. All right, I'm going to pass the next, but we humans, we created these problems. Let's get together and solve them. Hey, back to you, Joel Siegel, for the next segment.
Hello, thank you. TATANKA, beautiful job, TATANKA, Harvey, and your entire panel. I want to say that one of the goals of the National Justice Roundtable is to create a beloved community. And we really have found a beloved community here. We're not just activists, we're family, friends, and colleagues. And, that's the only way you can really transform this country and the world, is you have to start by being a family. I call it Thanksgiving organizing, or Hanukkah organizing. And hey, Nat, great job, Nat. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. The next panel is ending homelessness, poverty, and social and economic justice. I just want to see if does Donald Whitehead with us, Executive Director of the National Coalition.
No, he is not. No, he is.
Okay. Well, then I know we have Rajni, right? Shankar Brown?
Yep, you do.
Okay. First of all, before we start, I need to thank Andrea Miller, Mike Hirsch, Stephen Caruso. Without them, there's no way we could have produced this incredible, run of show. And these are the heroes, of movements. It's the people who are in the background, but without them, there's no way we could have done this incredible.
Donald's here.
The great speakers.
Donald is here.
Oh, Donald's here?
Donald's here.
Okay. Yep. I'm just going to brief statement, and then I'm going to introduce our incredible moderators.
Joel, let me jump in real quick. Procedurally, you're going to do this magnificent panel on social justice and ending homelessness and poverty. When it's done, those of you who want to speak up, we are going to have a lasagna hour, which was going to be the last hour of our in-person meeting, and everybody will have a chance to speak. So this panel coming up on social justice is going to be spectacular. I want to remind people that Joel is the founder of the Smart Alec, who is going to be drafting our legislation. And everybody, once this panel is over, in our lasagna hour, which will be engineered by Steve Caruso, we are going to have an open forum. So stick around for that, if you will. And Joel, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Lago. We were going to show a video from the National Coalition for the Homeless. Unfortunately, because of some technical issues, we will not be able to show that. But when we do the next round table, that National Coalition for the Homeless is going to spearhead on ending homelessness and how we're going to do that, we will have the opportunity to do that. Naomi Klein, in her seminal work, This Changes Everything, said that if we're going to address climate change and go to 100% clean renewable energy, we at the same time can have the objective of ending poverty. There's no reason to accept poverty and homelessness. Why? Because as someone who experienced poverty and homelessness myself, and who deals with homeless people almost every day, it is unconscionable in the richest country in the world to have one person to be houseless and unhoused. That started from Ronald Reagan in 81 to 85, an $80 billion cut in affordable housing. And that is one of the reasons why where I live in Charlotte, we can't afford to build housing because we need federal dollars. And what I think Rajni and Donald are doing, they are spearheading the second attempt to end homelessness through the Bring America Home campaign. And this is going to be an historical campaign. We got about 1.5 years to pass this bill. But we need everyone to realize that we can address climate change and address poverty and ending homelessness because we can walk and chew gum at the same time. All right. So without further ado, let me welcome my brother, my friend, my colleague, Donald Whitehead, Executive Director, the National Coalition for the Homeless. He is, in my opinion, one of the most important organizers that I've ever met. I met him when I was in Congress. And then Rajni Shankar Brown, Professor, Stetson University, Vice President of the NCH Board of Directors. She is the Professor and Endowed Chair of Social Justice Education at Stetson University. And she is absolutely fantastic. We are trying to make sure that we bring in the East Indian community, every ethnic community in leadership. So without further ado, this is going to be a phenomenal panel. And we're going to ask everyone to just, please go 3 minutes each. And the questions that will be asked is, what are you working on? Why is it important to you? And how do we win? Without further ado, Rajni, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to actually turn the mic to Donald to start us off today, and then I'll come back over. Donald?
Thank you, Rajni. Thank you, Joel, for that introduction and framing of the issue, a critical issue that has been, unfortunately, an issue that has not received the amount of attention, the resources, and a real comprehensive solution that actually is a solution that brings about structural change for 40 years at the very least. And really, it's never been done. 40 years ago, we at the National Coalition came up with something called the Homeless Person Survival Act. That actually got enacted in 1987 as the McKinney-Vento Act. It was the McKinney Act then, it got changed to Vento after his death. But that issue, that particular piece of legislation is still the primary source of funding in the United States to address homelessness. The Homeless Person Survival Act was whittled down to an emergency response. And so for 40 years, we've been treating this issue as an emergency response issue and not really looking down the road, going deeper to find the structural solutions that are necessary to end homelessness in America. A couple of months ago, Joel and I and the National Coalition Board of Directors and partners from 70 agencies decided to form a new campaign. The last real movement that we've had on homelessness was the Housing Now campaign. Some of you may have been involved in that. We need to recreate that same energy. The ability to end homelessness is not going to come from a politician's desk, or it's not going to come from one piece of legislation. It's going to take a comprehensive strategy to end homelessness. So what I'd like to ask everybody on this call to do, and especially our panelists, is to look into the chat box. I've put the address for the Bring America Home Now campaign. It's the bringamericahome.org. I'm going to ask you to link on to that website and join our campaign. We need each and every one of you to end homelessness in America. We can do it. There's a lot of resources out there, but just last week, and I'm going to end with this, we faced just an insurmountable challenge in my mind. That was the end of the moratorium on evictions. At the same time, we're seeing people being swept from encampments. There is so much work we have to do. And I'll tell you right now, and end with this, that the homeless service industry, the industry of service providers cannot afford 25 million more homeless people. There's not enough shelter. There's not enough resources. We have to do something right now. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Rajni.
Thank you so much, Donald. And I want to thank everyone who's been in this space today. I have been joining the program, the entirety of this program, and how uplifting for all of us to come together united to be able to hear such diverse voices. So thank you so much, Joel, Harvey, everybody who envisioned and organized this. This is the kind of movement that our world truly needs. So namaste. I am so grateful to be gathered today in unity with radical love, with sacred and transformative healing centered with what we are doing, and to be here focused on advancing and bending the arc for justice. Thank you again, Joel, Harvey, everyone who's here as we work to organize, mobilize, educate, advocate, and create a healthier, more just world for all, especially for our children and youth. We've heard from an array of amazing speakers already today. And if we are going to create sustainable change and bend the arc toward justice, it is up to us, we the people, to come together, to work together. And our Justice Roundtable today reflects the power of both diversity and unity. As Maya Angelou so beautifully reminded us, in diversity there is beauty and there is strength. Centering sacred healing and shared humanity is vital to this work. We must also cultivate joy in this work and prioritize well-being. I'm going to just share a brief Sanskrit chant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In our Sanskrit Vedas, we learn that in order to have peace, we must manifest and work towards justice. In order to have justice, we need love. Deep, radical empathy and love. Love for each other, love for our environment, and a true collective commitment towards justice. Let us remember what Dr. King so wisely told us. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertion and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. You just heard my colleague, dear friend, and co-conspirator for justice, Donald Whitehead, talk about this tireless exertion and work that the National Coalition for the Homeless is engaged in. And again, we ask all of you to sign on to our campaign and for us to intersectionally work together to ensure that human rights are not only prioritized, but they are manifested into a reality that spreads its wings beautifully and widely. Currently, we have such deep fractions in our world, humans suffering on massive levels, loss of precious lives, persistent and systemic racism, intersecting with economic justice, injustice, sexism, heterosexism, ableism, xenophobia, religious and linguistic discrimination, rooted in patriarchal colonialism, white supremacy, and capitalism. And we must dismantle oppressive forces that are keeping us from social and environmental justice, oppressive forces that are visible through climate change, public health disparities, the school to prison pipeline, voter suppression, immigration discrimination, continuing deep environmental and racial disparities, the too many unacceptable and distressing, daunting realities that are disproportionately impacting Black and Brown Indigenous communities, calling on all of us to rise and to stay vigilant. When we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, we start to see so many of the fractions exasperated and magnified, especially homelessness. millions of individuals and families, large percentages of children and youth are disproportionately impacted every day by homelessness. Without safe shelter across the landscape of the US, and the numbers we are seeing at the National Coalition for the Homeless, we are immersed in data, and the numbers we are seeing continue to surge. Communities seeing up to 40% rises in numbers. And then we have the looming evictions, as Donald brought up, which has the potential to move millions more displaced and into homelessness. Our world is on fire, literally and figuratively. And we cannot stop marching for social and environmental justice. We need diverse voices, women of color, centered and at tables, making decisions, having agency, being part of the leadership of movements. Congressman John Lewis told us there's not anything more powerful than marching, the marching of feet of a determined people. We today gather with determination. So let's keep marching. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Today, we renew our collective commitment as an intersectional, united, progressive coalition. And we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Today, I am uplifted to be together in beloved community, not only as a justice scholar, educator, and activist, but especially as an amma or mother. Our children deserve a better world, and we must unite for justice. Today, we have an amazing roundtable planned. Donald and I are so excited to hear from all of our diverse voices, and we are so thankful, especially to our dear brother Joel, for all of his support. We're going to ask everyone to keep to 3 minutes so we can hear everybody's voices today. And again, to remind us of the question that will center our discussion. What issues related to ending poverty and homelessness and addressing social and economic justice are you currently working on? And how do you think we can win? Onward and upward together. The first person I'm going to call on today is Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler with the National Interfaith Justice Group. He is a wonderful leader coming from Charlotte, North Carolina. Reverend Sadler, if you're with us, please join us.
Thank you so very much, Rajni. It is wonderful to be with you all today. And I felt so welcomed with the social justice, civil rights songs that you sang at the end. Your message about us needing to come together, the message, the need for oneness is one that's long overdue. I'm so glad today. I have to thank my friends, the many friends who are here, but in particular, Joel Siegel, the visionary, I call him the Muse of Social Justice, and Andrea Miller, with whom I work in so many other organizations, People Demanding Action, the Common Cause, Coalition for Common, for Center for Common Ground, so many different groups with all of these great folks. We are trying to work for a unified progressive community and trying to overcome so many of the difficulties that we face together because we have not decided on the right vision for America. We haven't decided on the right way of creating a nation where justice truly does roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Today, I want to come here and say that I have not been able to be with some of these great conversations of late because I've been working on another project. It's a project that we call the Reimagining America Project. What the Reimagining America Project is a opportunity to bring truth and reconciliation processes to the United States, to begin to deal with some of those crises that we have dealt with for so long in terms of issues of race, racial disparity, poverty, and inequality. We think that the only way that we're going to do this is to do two things. Number one, we have to first deconstruct the concept of race. So often we deal with issues of racism and the way that racism undermines people's ability to thrive. We see police officers shooting black men. We put cameras on cops. We see African-American kids failing in schools, and we put more money into schools, but nothing really changes. Well, nothing will really change until we get rid of that base ideology, that core root principle of race that produces injustice in our system. We can never be a nation that truly holds these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, if we still hold on to an idea that we are fundamentally unequal, unfairly, should be treated unfairly, and that this is dominant. We have also begun to come together and work on this here in Charlotte. We've had 6 hearings so far, and we continue to suggest that the way forward as American people is, number one, we have to get rid of the racialized system that exists, have to dismantle it, and we have to reimagine what would a more just, more fair system look like, and then begin to work to put that in place. This needs to be done in Charlotte. This needs to be done in Los Angeles, in Cleveland, Ohio, where I find myself right now. It needs to be done across the nation. And I'm inviting you all today to come together with us to join the Reimagining America project, and let's find a way forward so that we can truly, once and for all, have a nation that lives up to the promises of its creed. Thank you all for this time today. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sadler, for your wise words and spirit. We're now going to have Christian Nunez, president of the National Organization for Women, located in Washington, D.C., a dear friend and colleague. Christian, welcome.
Rajni, Christian had to leave the call, so we're going to move on to our next.
Perfect. Thank you, Donald. Domingo Garcia is our next speaker for our roundtable.
Domingo isn't here either. It's Anna Blackburn.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. Anna Blackburn, a Latinx leader with North Carolina Poor People's Campaign. Anna, we're so delighted to have you with us today.
Buenos dias. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here with you all, with all these great organizers and activists. My name is Ana y la Raza Blackburn. I am one of the tri-chairs for the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign. I'm also the first Latina immigrant liaison for the North Carolina NAACP. So I'm here because as an activist and organizer, I was raised with the ideology that I am my brother's keeper. And watching the issues that are afflicting our communities, from ecological devastation to poverty to immigration reform, all these are interconnecting issues. The Poor People's Campaign, we're organizing around the nation, challenging the systems of racism, poverty, ecological devastation, war, economy, militarism, and the distorted moral narrative. We are people who challenge the false moral narrative of religious and Christian nationalism, and who are lifting up a moral vision of justice and love and care for the poor, the stranger, the sick, and the least of these as a guiding moral framework for addressing public policy. Why? Because we have a moral obligation to ensure a humane and civilized society. And this nation has yet to even depict from its own constitution what democracy really, truly looks like. So we've yet to see that vision. So we have a moral obligation to ensure that those around us are not being kept down and oppressed, or being lifted up as a whole community. We've just finished in the Poor People's Campaign engaging in a season of direct action from July 12th to August the 8th. We engaged on various issues. Why? Because again, we cannot work on these issues individually. They are interlocking issues, and we must fight them head on. If we start fighting them individually, we will never progress and create the sustainable change that we need. So why is it important that we support one another? Because it creates power. Because if we come together and come out of our silos, then we create the sustainable change that we need. So thank you for having us, having me here. And I look forward to engaging on the ground with the rest of my colleagues that are here online.
Thank you so much, Anna, especially speaking of that interconnection, really, really important. Thank you very much. Next, we have Ann Tobach with the Workers' Circle coming from New York City. Ann, if you're here, yes.
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Wonderful. So thanks so much for giving the Workers' Circle the opportunity to be a part of this incredible and powerful gathering. I want to note you have me and my colleague Noelle D'Amico on this panel, so we thought we'd combine our presentations to save some time. I just wanted to share a little about the Workers' Circle since I think it's new to some of you. We're a national progressive Jewish social justice organization, and we have a community of over 20,000 activists across the country. We were founded in 1900 by Eastern European immigrant activists, and our first members came to the United States escaping anti-Semitic violence and economic hardship. Our founders were also labor activists, and they understood that it was only through collective engagement that we would win, that we would create a world where dignity, safety, and worker rights were respected. The Workers' Circle historically was a key player in the early union movement, the fight to keep the United States a sanctuary for all immigrants, women's right to vote, civil rights, and beginning in 1957, we fought and continue to fight to end the filibuster. The Workers' Circle's activism in 2021 is shaped by our founders' vision for a better world. We continue their fight for democracy through today's national campaign to combat voter suppression. We understand that structural racism continues to drive terrible inequality in our society, and we're a partner in the national movement to end systemic racism. We're fighting for the United States to be an open home to immigrants and refugees in need of sanctuary, and for a pathway to citizenship for immigrants once they're here. And we continue to advocate on behalf of workers. As part of our social justice work, we're committed to teaching activism to young people as well as others. All people who want to join our community, to create an open tent and to engage in strong coalitions that strategically organize to win. And now I'm going to turn the camera over to my colleague, our social justice director, Noelle D'Amico. Noelle recently, about a year and a half ago, joined us after over 20 years of work with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, and she continues to teach organizing and social change at the NYU Wagner Graduate School of Public Service. And now she's going to tell us what we need to do to win.
It's so wonderful to be with all of you this afternoon. And I want to just start by saying we need to stop looking at what's winnable and put power behind what's essential and make it winnable. We need our movements to come together in power, and I am so delighted to have this broad array here at this table. Young people, the Poor People's Campaign, people who have been working at this for so many years. So when we talk about winnable, who gets to define what is a win? It has to be those who are most directly affected. And that means that those who are directly affected must not simply be at the table, but at the head of the table, creating the solutions that the rest of us put our power behind. And we can do that because we know these models are out there and are working. For example, the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, farm workers from Southwest Florida, have taken on the largest corporations in the world to create a fair food program that's protecting the human rights of tens of thousands of workers in the fields across this nation, and started a model that has been translated into industries around the world to protect workers' rights. Right here in New York City, we work together with immigrant rights organizations to pass a $2.1 billion fund for excluded workers after our nation consistently left out immigrants from essential coronavirus relief. Those kinds of solutions can be scaled. So we want to start looking at how can we get our solutions from those directly impacted? How can we put our power behind it? How can we start scaling those solutions? For each of us in particular, it means coming and saying saying, what does my particular organization have to bring to this coalition? What is our unique voice, our unique contribution? What resources can we bring? And as Reverend Graylin Hagler mentioned at the beginning, we have to be willing to risk our access to political leaders and systems in order to marshal power. It's not only about drawing attention to the problem, it's about building a movement that's strong enough to get us to the solution. And finally, it's not only about winning, it's about sustaining the win itself. It's our ability to implement, to fund, to ensure enforcement and protection that will take us from winning something in principle to winning it in practice and changing lives on the ground as a result. I believe we can do it. The Workers' Circle is glad to be a part of this coalition, and thank you so much for having us be a part today.
Thank you so much, Anne and Noelle. Thank you very much. And Noelle, I was excited to hear you speak on the Coalition for Immokalee Workers as well, because I partner with them very closely in my work here in Florida. So awesome. Okay, next we have Natalie Fassian from the Ride Revived and Frequency Learning. Natalie, if you're here, you're welcome to join.
Natalie had to leave. Next is Maureen Taylor.
Okay, awesome. And I just want to pause for a moment. I've seen some wonderful questions coming into our chat. I haven't been able to keep up with everything, but I did see a few folks asking for contact information for various folks, including those who are on our panel right now. And so I believe Joel Siegel is going to be putting something together, is my understanding, that will go out to everybody who's participating, so we can all follow up, right, and continue to come together and to intersectionally work on our justice issues. So just wanted to go ahead and share that. And I am just so grateful. This is awesome, good energy. And as we think about human rights, poverty and homelessness, it is fundamental, right, in all of our discussions, and rooted in racism and so many of the intersectional issues we've spoken about today. I want to now turn it over to Donald Whitehead, and we will come back at the end as well. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajni. Thank you for your beautiful message at the beginning. I didn't know about your singing voice, but that was amazing as well. And I want to thank all of our presenters. This has been fascinating just to hear the many movements that are coming together. And I hope we will coalesce and join together in the various activities. They all culminate in the same thing, a need for justice in our world. So thank you all for that. Our next speaker is Maureen Taylor. She's the chairperson for the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. Maureen?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'm so humbled to be invited to such an auspicious gathering. Michigan Welfare Rights has a single issue, a single mission, and that is to eliminate poverty. We target different types of campaigns toward that end. And right now we're looking at ways that everyday events violate moderate and poor people. I bring a class analysis, my sisters and brothers, to this conversation. And as just one voice of the Welfare Rights Organization, I want to share a few observations that clarify our collective point of view. Now, most recently, you probably have heard cities in Michigan have experienced multiple heavy rains that have caused basement flooding, severe enough to prompt the governor to call for help and declare a state of emergency. The feds sent FEMA in to help us. We were delighted. Their message has been clear. Use your home insurance to cover losses if you have it. And if you don't have home insurance, you pay for the damages and FEMA will reimburse you. What did that end up in? Thousands of Michigan residents, men, women, seniors, the disabled, children, even veterans, since that first June 25th and 26th major rain event, have not secured help to address this crisis. The largest energy provider in Michigan is called DTE Energy. Cities in Michigan have experienced 6 power outages in 4 months, one of which stopped refrigerators from working for days at a time, as the 750,000 households involved in this outage, including my own, left us with spoiled food. In turn, despite the obscene profits that this one company earned during the pandemic, they have offered $25 to those households that they will pre-select to compensate for food losses. A worldwide health plague surfaces, horrific food lines develop nationwide, poor people suffer. Global weather-related warming events surface, our electricity goes out, poor people suffer. The Titanic starts to sink. The families referred to as steerage on the lower levels find out that they need to run up top. There's no room for them in the lifeboats as they fight their way up to the upper decks, so poor people suffer. I will end my remarks by quoting so often the masters, the classics. In this case, I'm going to close by quoting Science Officer Spock and James T. Kirk having a conversation, and James Kirk is upset because Spock is about to die. But before Spock leaves the Earth, what he says is the following: Jim, never forget that the needs of the many must always outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Thank you.
My name is Maureen Taylor. I'm honored to serve as state chairperson of the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, and thank you so very much for your patience. I'll go back on mute.
Maureen, we thank you so much for bringing us that message. So many problems with just utter failure of public institutions and private industry in the Michigan area. We stand in solidarity with you as yet another one has been identified. And thank you so much for your comments. Our next speaker is Mia Sinicol from March for Our Lives.
Hi, everyone. For those who may have missed my earlier section in today's programming, my name is Mia. I'm the Deputy Organizing Director at March for Our Lives. For those who aren't familiar, March for Our Lives is a gun violence prevention organization that was born out of the tragic shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida in 2018, in which 17 lives were lost. Out of that tragedy, a youth-led movement with 300 chapters across the country was born. Now, the National Gun Violence Prevention Movement has not traditionally focused its efforts on understanding why gun violence happens in the first place, March for Our Lives being included in that. When people don't feel safe and they don't feel cared for by the state, they are more likely to turn to guns and gun violence as a means for protection and safety. This doesn't excuse it, but it does mean that we know how to end it, and that traditional gun violence prevention tactics such as assault weapons bans and universal background checks alone aren't enough. To fully eradicate gun violence, we must understand and liberate ourselves from its root causes, including poverty. The communities facing the highest rates of everyday gun violence have been intentionally impoverished, systemically denied resources and opportunities by the state for generations. The COVID-19 pandemic has especially highlighted wealth disparities, and we've also seen gun sales reach unprecedented numbers during the pandemic. This unprecedented spike in gun sales, in combination with increased economic hardship, are accelerating our gun violence crisis. We know that poverty relief efforts, including employment programming opportunities, are proven to reduce gun violence. There's legislation we can advocate for, such as the Opening Doors for Youth Act of 2021, which provides subsidized summer and year-round employment for youth who face systemic barriers to employment and viable career options, and to assist local community partnerships in improving high school graduation and youth employment rates. We can also further alleviate poverty by showing solidarity and working towards raising workers' wages, advocating for affordable housing, and doing mutual aid work. Recently, at March for Our Lives, we've rolled out a mutual aid program called Aidan Alliance, in which our youth organizers on the ground are working directly with communities, directly with grassroots organizations who are focused solely on poverty relief. Our organizers are hosting food supply and school supply drives, contributing to rent relief programs, and are working directly with other local organizations who combat poverty every day. Our investments and advocacy efforts, not only for gun violence prevention, but in all issue areas, really have to center community, including programming, mutual aid, and preventative and destigmatizing work that does reflect cultural competence. I also just want to say, before my section wraps up, again, thank you so much to Joel and everybody else who's helped organize this National Justice Roundtable. It's been great to hear just from the diversity of speakers and experts from all issues of advocacy. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mia. Really very, very, very important issue, and one we see raising its head every day. And just thank you for the courage of your group to really elevate this issue in a way that I think conversations are happening that we wouldn't have seen several years ago. So thank you for the courage, the passion, and the stick-to-itness that has really started to raise this issue. I hope we can get further down the line, but thank you for your efforts. We really, really appreciate having you here. And I echo the thanks to Joe for bringing such a powerful, diverse panel that's really looking at the plethora of issues that we have in this country that we need to coalesce on. I say that again, we need to come together and show that there's a force for justice that is a combined force that can't be defeated. Our next speaker is Norman Stockwell, and he's the publisher of Progressive Magazine.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be invited here today. And of course, all of these issues that we've been talking about for the last few hours are things that we cover in the pages of our magazine. The Progressive is a 112-year-old national political magazine based in Madison, Wisconsin. In our tradition, we are fiercely anti-militarist, against corporate influence in our democracy, pro-free speech, pro-human rights, pro-workers' rights, supportive of a sustainable environment and grassroots democracy. In addition to a bi-monthly magazine and a website, progressive.org, we also have two projects. One is called Public Schools Advocate, which we support journalists around the country reporting on the attempt to privatize public schools across the United States and the fight back against that attempt. And the other project is called Progressive Perspectives. And the goal of that project is to diversify the op-ed pages of our nation's newspapers. And we distribute op-eds through the Tribune News Service to newspapers across the United States. In fact, Donald, we did one of yours in June of this year on homelessness. Our magazine was started by Robert M. La Follette. He was a progressive senator and governor of Wisconsin. He founded the magazine in 1909. And in 1924, he created a progressive political party and ran for president of the United States. And at that time in a speech, he said, "America is not made, but is in the making. Mere passive citizenship is not enough. Men must be aggressive for what is right if government is to be saved from those who are aggressive for what is wrong." Very much a tradition of political activism as we are gathered here today, and a tradition of unifying people to work on these issues. In 1918, Bob La Follette also said, "The supreme issue involving all others is the encroachment of the powerful few on the rights of the many." And about 100 years after that, in 2019, back when we could still gather in person at events, I spoke at Fighting Bob La Follette's birthplace in Wisconsin. And I just wanted to read a couple of words from that. "Today, we are again faced with a great political crisis, with economic inequality rivaling the days of the robber barons, redistricting and voter ID laws impeding the ability of citizens to vote, and corporate influence skewing our electoral system with volumes of cash unimaginable in La Follette's time. Once again, people are calling for a return to a truly democratic system of governance by and for the people. In these struggles that we chronicle in our magazine today, these voices that we lift up, voices that are otherwise unrepresented in the media, as Fighting Bob said when he was elected overwhelmingly to the US Senate for a second term in 1911, tyranny and oppression are just as possible under democratic forms as under any other. We are slow to realize that democracy is a life that involves continual struggle. It is only as those of every generation who love democracy resist with all their might the encroachments of its enemies that the ideals of representative government can ever be nearly approximated. So that's our message for today, and it's so wonderful to join together with all of you and look forward to continuing this work to building a progressive, unified movement here in the United States.
Norman, really, really well said. And I thank you for just your long history of providing the information, the education that the progressive movement needs to keep going. Please continue your fine work and really appreciate the opportunity to have an op-ed in your publication. And thank you for that. And thank you for all you do. Your words were beautiful, and they reflect the beauty of your publication. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Phyllis Salatoro. She's a Universal Healthcare Senior Citizens Right and Disability Act.
Donald, your next speaker that's here is Donna Marie Woodson.
Thank you, Andrea. And Andrea, thank you for all your powerful work too, as well. I don't think you get enough of the recognition for the amazing work that you do. So with that, we'll go to Donna Marie Woodson, the Alliance of Moral Progressives.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be here at this historic roundtable. I too believe that we need to come together to have this united progressive coalition, because it's critical and I want to be a part of that. I plan to be a part of that. Yes, my name is Donna Marie Woodson, and I'm communications director with the Alliance of Moral Progressives, AMP, as we call ourselves, and also a lifelong activist. And as a progressive activist on the grassroots level, my mission is to end homelessness and poverty and achieve social and economic equity with education, through education and year-round civic involvement of underserved communities. I think that education is the pathway to getting progressive candidates elected so that they can forward our progressive policies that benefit everyone. I know that one of the things that I find working with people on the ground and talking to my neighbors is that people don't have any idea the implications of voting and what that means for them at their own home. So that's why they tune out, because they don't see any benefit for them. But if we work with them one-on-one, we can represent the word of this is why we vote. This is why we engage in that citizenship, because it affects you, my neighbor, where you live, whether you know it or not. And every time I talk to someone and they bring up the word politics, I tell them, here, do this. Write the word politics on a piece of paper and then set the paper on fire, because that word has been a ploy forever to get people not to vote. Oh, it's just about politics. That doesn't have anything to do with me. We have to break it down on a one-on-one level to be the human face of our shared common issues. And that's so important. The other thing about education that I've watched over the years is voters don't understand that there's not voting just every 4 years. There's a vote going on every year, and they need to be aware of that, and they need to participate in their local elections. I think that's where we lose so much ground, when people are not participating and understanding who their county representatives are, city council sheriff, and not least, but the governor. And that's why we have all of these voter suppression bills being passed, because of people not participating on the local level and making sure that they put in place people who are going to have their best interests at heart. So that's why when I talk to my fellow community, I'm a precinct chair organizer. So I talk to people all the time. And I tell them, you know what, our representatives report to us. It should not be the other way around. We have got to be involved in city council meetings, standing up and voicing what we want, our issues. And you know what, having our own meetings and telling our representatives, you need to be at that meeting because we want to hold you accountable. You come and talk to us because you work for us. I really want people to take that power back. They don't see it, but I tell them all the time, you have the power. Let's use it collectively. That's what this is all about. We can just exponentially improve everybody's lives and have so much more power on the state and the federal level. I always say, you know, pressure on our politicians create wins from the grassroots up. So thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today, and absolutely, United Progressive Coalitions. Let's stick together. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Really important messages. We know education is the antidote to poverty. And thank you for bringing that up. And I'll say, if you don't like the people that are running your community, your state, or your country, run for office yourself. And we'll go to our next speakers. Our next speaker. We have a couple of really amazing speakers, and thank you all who've had the opportunity to speak so far. Just some amazing thoughts. And we really appreciate all of your opportunities to share your wisdom as a part of this forum. Our next speaker is Joe Libertelli, and I hope I pronounced that right, Joe, from the University of District of Columbia, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't comfortably fit into this topic. Joel and I had a discussion about how we can get folks out of silos. And so while I have worked on social justice and environmental activism my entire career, I will mention that I helped save the Antioch School of Law and helped create the now UDC David A. Clark School of Law, which is a social justice clinical law school, interracial social justice law school in the nation's capital, helped start Progressive Democrats. I am working on a common calendar that would list the activities of all of our organizations and make it really, really easy for people who wanted to do more in their local area to be able to find the exact thing that got them excited and that would maximize their potential as a volunteer. But I think the idea that I mentioned to Joel that he was most interested in is that in order to get folks who are doing such important work, trying to save human beings and trying to protect the environment, whether it's a specific piece or the climate, in general, what could motivate us to work together? Well, one possibility is if we had a clear decision-making process through which we could come together and discuss all of our options and really think it through, get to know one another, get to know each other's issues, and make intelligent decisions about strategic projects that we could work on. I use the term Congress. Of course, Joel, his ears lit up when I mentioned that, having spent so many years working in Congress, but a progressive Congress, reminiscent of the African National Congress, but a formalized structure where we would take the time to think through who would be represented in it, what the process for thinking through the ideas might be. And then another aspect of it is if there was an impressive array of organizations that came together in such a process, I suspect that we could find wealthy individuals who would put up money to fund prospectively the collective decision about the specific project that we work on, maybe projects. And in addition, having money, if there was $1 million or $5 million, that would encourage organizations to get more involved. And as an individual who is not a millionaire, I would be willing to put up $1,000 on a contingent basis. If we got enough other people to make this a go, I would kick in. And so you could create a virtuous cycle to get us working together so that we can pick strategically on what issue, whether it's passing a voting rights law, whether it's voting rights for the District of Columbia, ending felon disenfranchisement. Strategically, what could we do that would benefit all of us? I would say that's what we should think about. And with regard to DC voting rights, since I have been a longtime DC resident, though not currently, one possibility could be to float the notion of if 5,000 other people were to commit to doing nonviolent civil disobedience for DC voting rights in a time, place, and manner as determined by Reverend Hagler and Joel and other known people, and we were to milk it for all the publicity, perhaps the drama of doing that would be enough to move our fellow Americans across the country to think more kindly on DC voting rights. And so I would look forward to being part of the discussion about how we can actually address power. I mean, we have wonderful ideas. I'm confident that we have the solutions to how the country and the world could be more sustainably and equitably run, but we just don't have the power. So getting out of the silos, coming up with mechanisms to do that is what I'm most interested in. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share these thoughts. And thank you to the organizers.
Joe, we thank you as well. Thank you for those comments. Really, really important issue you just raised. DC statehood is something that's long overdue. And thank you for your advocacy on it and helping to start the PDA and the progressive movement. I understand that Phyllis Zola-Toro has now been able to join us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Phyllis, who is a universal health advocate, she advocates for also senior citizens and disability rights. Thank you for joining us. I don't see Phyllis yet. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to James Fukuda, who is one of the leaders of LULAC, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's go back again. Is that Phyllis?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, Phyllis, why don't you go ahead, and James, please wait on deck. We'll have you up next.
Good evening, everyone. I am with the newly formed Secure Seniors Group because we're fed up and we're scared. I've been advocating for low-income senior renters for years. We are a group that is continually being ignored, possibly because many seniors are computer illiterate or feel vulnerable. The one thing you will never see is senior women and men marching in DC with canes, walkers, and wheelchairs. That ship has sailed. The largest group ever born in the United States, the baby boomers, will all be 65 and over in 8 years, and not all of us have been able to save for retirement. 2/3 of seniors 65 and over are women. Despite Social Security, women over 65 are in danger of falling into critical poverty. So this is a serious and urgent women's issue. The federal statistics are if rent is more than 30% of your income, you are rent burdened. At 50% of income, you are severely rent burdened. On a personal note, when my unemployment benefits end in 2 weeks, my rent will be 70% of my income. So I don't know what category I fall into. But I'm only one of millions of low-income seniors in this situation. Very few new low-income developments are planned because developers can't even break even on these builds. The only possible resolution seems to be low-income senior rental assistance so that grandmas and grandpas don't end up living under bridges. It's a frightening situation to be in. I have neighbors who have told me at the end of the month, if they have $20 left, that's a big deal. And we do have the right to have a little fun besides staring at the four walls, and when we get bored, leaning back and staring at the ceiling for a change of scenery. The government absolutely needs to fund rental assistance, and HUD should be responsible for that. Thank you very much.
Phyllis, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that issue to our attention. We are working very hard. I encourage you to join the Bring America Home Now campaign. One of the biggest components of our campaign is increasing housing production in this country, and that would be protecting public housing and making the Section 8 program an entitlement. So I urge you to join our campaign.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to bring on our next speaker, who is James Fukuda. And James is one of the leaders of LULAC, which is the largest Latin American advocacy organization. He's a champion for ending homelessness and also a progressive business leader, and also one of the core team members of the Bring America Home Now Act, and also a National Coalition board member. So James Fukuda, with the many titles, you are our next speaker.
Well, thank you, Donald, Joel. I'd like to thank the two ladies before me, Ms. Woodson and Phyllis. It seems to me that we live in a time where the majority of us have become disposable. Our society, our government, sucks people dry, gets whatever value they care to admit to out of us, out of all of us, and then throws us away. This was particularly true during COVID, when I took over several of the hotels in New York City that were housing homeless people who had COVID, and discovered that the people who had managed the building before me had allowed two people to die alone and unnoticed. And when we unlocked the room, it was very clear that those people had been dead for several days. We're disposable. If you don't want to be disposable, then you have to reconcile yourself to the fact that we are in a war. We're in a war with a very few people and their sycophants and everyone else. Because now, because of funding, because of local politics that creates zoning and land use problems, we're segregated. If you live in the wrong community, you're segregated in housing, in education, in the ability to get nutritional food, childcare, an easy way to get to work. This has to stop. It isn't just the federal government. It's also local government. We have to ask questions. Who controls the decisions made on sewage systems, on water supply systems, in housing, which is what I know? Who controls the bond finance for low-income housing? Who controls the disbursement of tax credits? I ask all of you, join me, join us, fight for yourselves. Let's fight for each other. They have taken away, the government has taken away our self-respect. All I can say is, whether you choose to fight or not, I respect you and I hope you respect me. Self-respect is where this is all going to start, and how we're going to finish it. Thank you.
James, thank you so much. Really important things for us to consider. And you said something so powerful that we're all expendable. That's really the message that we need to send here. And the only way we're not expendable is if we come together. Power concedes nothing without protest. It never has, and it never will. So thank you for reminding us of that. We have two more speakers, and then we'll get to Lasagna Hauer. Our next speaker is a progressive labor hero from the United Auto Workers Union and a close contact of the former Congressman John Conyers. And our next speaker is Bob Sizzler. Bob, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm with the retired workers out of Region 1A. That's a little bit smaller area than the whole country. But also, we've worked with retirees for single payer. And I guess what I'd like to say today is I've had these speakers before me, and I've changed what I was going to say 3 or 4 times. But I like the idea, and I know the idea, that we are very, very disposable. And what I'd like to talk about is how did we get this way? John Conyers often said, everything's connected. When we started working on healthcare, of course, we saw the injustice in that. But then we started seeing injustices, whether we talk about water's given out to people, how they can turn off the water when we have so much water in Detroit area. And we just see all this injustice. How do we get this way? Well, what I have seen, and I guess it comes from something I just saw this week, is when we talk about equality, we also have to talk about equity in the society. And we do not have equity in the society. As Maureen said, those people who could afford insurance, no problem, and sometimes got relief from FEMA even with the insurance. But people who are redlined in Detroit, it's screw you again and screw you again. You're so poor, you can't afford the insurance, so you're so poor you can't get any help. That is what's going on. And why does it go on? Because we as Americans have accepted that we are all in a different class. We do not believe in true common good in mind when we make up. It's how do I support those people who will help me get reelected? And that is our problem. Because we are living in these silos. We're allowed to think I'm better than you because I have something a little bit better than you. Instead of recognizing that there is a pattern, there's always been a pattern. But the 1% and these corporations have allowed us to put ourselves in silos. Fighting against. We're fighting against everything that FDR tried to put in his 8 bill of education, security of a house for your family, the idea of having health care for everyone, Social Security for the older. And when he talks about these 8 bill of rights, he says, you have to have something for you and your family, but you also have to have recreation. If you don't have recreation, is this 8 Bill of Rights about making a better life? No. When he gave his speech, he said, this is to avoid fascism. And we almost saw that happen last year in Washington. So we realize that countries where they have embraced these Bill of Rights spend more time on education and less on putting their kids in. Spend more time on making sure everybody has health care and spend less time on having a system, a judicial system that far outweighs our educational system. These are the inequities that we have throughout our society. Until we realize that we got to bring this all together, and promote equality and equity in every school in this country. We have to promote health care that is not by definition giving the wealthiest guy who operates it millions of dollars and sometimes billions, and the guy who's scrubbing the floor and getting rid of the corona, not even enough to live. It's a shame what this country has become. Because when we look at the countries, even Canada, did they go around and ask for $1,400 over this corona thing? No, the prime minister came in and said, everyone's going to get $2,000 a month for 3 months because that's what we're asking you to stay home. So to run a house, you at least need $2,000. See the difference? Whereas where the people have taken control of the government and make it work for them, we have let these corporations do us. Is that because of slavery? Is that because begging idea that government has to give us something? I can only tell you the reality. That's what we do. We beg them instead of demanding that they do equal justice for all. Thank you. And may God's peace rest with you for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Extremely powerful. Thank you for reminding us who the power really lies with. And with that, we're going to go to our final speaker, and then you'll get to move into your spaghetti hour. But our final speaker is a wonderful speaker. Dr. Bill Honeckman is a retired emergency room doctor and a leading advocate for Medicare for all and improved healthcare for all. So, Dr. Bill, we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great, thanks. So I want to thank everybody for being here today, especially the faithful few that stuck around for the end, and but the organizers, and I'm truly humbled to be with all the other terrific panelists and participants who are doing so much great work across the country. I'm Bill Honeckman. I am a retired emergency room physician. I organize the healthcare issue team for Progressive Democrats America. And so much great stuff has been said already. I'm just going to share a couple of things with you all to kind of conclude this segment, I guess. I did want to share two kind of graphic illustrations. One is in the virtual background behind me, and it's apropos that you mentioned spaghetti, because this spaghetti diagram, which is a bunch of lines and little boxes, is actually how we pay for healthcare in America. And the healthcare expert who drew this diagram for me says there's actually 4 or 5 layers of this nonsense. And this is, I would offer to you, is not just administrative waste and BS, but it's also the opportunity for fraud and abuse. This is where they hide all the backroom deals, the surprise billing that people get, and the abuse of the extortion model business practices of big pharma and big insurance and big hospital that prices the product of healthcare in America based on what your life is worth to you, saying, hey, that's a nice kid you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to them and you don't buy our overpriced healthcare product to save their lives instead of what it actually costs them to provide that service. The other thing I want to offer to you in terms of this argument for economic justice is the data that I threw into the chat, and that is that the United States is the unmitigated, the all-time gold medalist in COVID deaths. And why is that? It's because of this mess. But as we all know, we have over 600,000 people who have died of COVID in this country, and that is the world leader, despite the fact that we do not have the largest population of any country in the world. We're still the world leader in COVID deaths. A full 40%, as you can see in the second number there, some 254,000 people, those lives could have been saved if we had a single payer Medicare for all system and that was derived by the distinguished Lancet Commission, a panel of public health experts that was published just this last February. And those COVID deaths, those avoidable, preventable COVID deaths are continuing now as we speak. So let me just pose to you what we're doing through Progressive Democrats America. Most people here know that we're a peace and social justice organization that does our work both inside and outside the Democratic Party. We are primarily issues-based and always mindful of the intersectionality, especially as regards issues of existential threat, meaning climate, health, poverty, racism, war, and political corruption. As you can see, COVID-19 is a clear clarion call for this global consciousness. Medicare for All addresses the needs for healthcare justice in that we're talking about universal healthcare where all of the people get all of the care and nothing less will be satisfactory. And it's science-based, meaning all public health and economic science says that it saves money and saves lives. And we will continue to rest on that foundational knowledge. What we are doing right now is advocating for expanding and improving Medicare because it advances that goal. In particular, it puts the most egregious predatory commercial interests in the medical industrial complex on notice, namely big pharma, big insurance, and big hospital are all threatened by what's being moved right now through Congress in the budget and reconciliation processes, and even through Joe Biden's Build Back Better Act. So it's heartening to see Joe Biden and even a lot of the status quo Democrats now using our language, that healthcare is a human right. And the president himself just the other day said it was no longer acceptable that prices be based on what the market will allow rather than what is determined by the public need. That's a tribute to the work that we're doing in the social justice community and the movement of healthcare justice and Medicare for all. So you can see that we are winning already. We are advancing the cause, and it's just a matter of when, not a what, that we get there. And thank you all for doing the great work that you do. And please follow us at PDA, pdamerica.org. We're still conducting weekly town hall meetings during the period of time of our healthcare crisis known as the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bill. And I want to thank all of our just amazing speakers for raising so many really, really important issues. And I want to close with just a couple of thoughts and then turn it over to Rajni for the last statement. So the one thing that I want us to remember is that we have incredible challenges in front of us. But we know that all of us have people in our ancestry who have overcome even more unsurmountable challenges or insurmountable challenges. If you're an African American, somebody in your family survived the Middle Passage, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and also modern day racism. If you're an Asian American, you have survived recent Asian hate. You also survived internment in this country. If you're a Native American, you survived the Trail of Tears. If you're a Jewish American, somebody in your family survived the Holocaust, and I could go on and on. The challenge of our time is tough, but it's not insurmountable. And no challenge has been insurmountable to people who start to get dissatisfied with current conditions. And I'll leave you with my favorite quote about being dissatisfied, because we've seen the ugly head of inequality raise its head during this pandemic. We've seen it for many years, but none so visual as what we've seen through COVID. So we have to not be satisfied with these conditions, whether it's the lack of housing, the climate change catastrophe that's happening with fires in California and floods in Louisiana. We cannot be satisfied. And I could not say it better than the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And this is what he said in one of his final speeches, Where do we go from here? Dr. King said, "Let us be dissatisfied until America will no longer have a high blood pressure of creeds and an anemia of deeds. Let us be dissatisfied until the tragic walls that separate the outer city of wealth and comfort and the inner city of poverty and despair shall be crushed by the battering rams of the forces of justice. Let us be dissatisfied until those that live on the outskirts of hope are brought into the metropolis of daily security. Let us be dissatisfied until the slums are cast into the junk heaps of history and every family is living in a decent home." Dr. Martin Luther King, let us be dissatisfied. We can't be satisfied with any of this. And with that, I'll pass it on to Dr. Rajni Shankar-Brown.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Donald, hearing you recite Dr. King's words. My heart just paused for a moment there. Thank you all again, everyone who has been here today for this roundtable, who has shown up with commitment and care. Our world needs all of us, and it's going to take all of us collectively working to advance justice. Let us persist. And let us also stay hopeful. In spite of all of the challenges, the heartache, the suffering, there is still hope. We feel that hope emerging and radiating today as we all come together. Everyone deserves shelter, food, quality health care, educational access and opportunity. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and we must fiercely love one another. Let us remember, as Congressman John Lewis put it, never, ever be afraid to make some noise and to get into good trouble, necessary trouble. We are the people, and we got this. Let us continue to get into good trouble and support one another. Namaste.
Namaste.
Fantastic. Wow, Rajni, wonderful. Donna, wonderful. James, wonderful. The whole panel was incredible. Give yourselves a round of applause. I will say that we are the richest country in the world. You can't be the richest country in the world and then the poorest country of the world at the same time. We're worth $66 trillion. We just need to get organized, get out of our silos, and we shall overcome. Thank you very much. Let me throw it back to Harvey Wasserman.
Well, this has been an astounding series of panels. We still have more than 100 people with us. I want to say that in the course of this panel, this discussion, this National Justice Roundtable, the last American military aircraft left Afghanistan. Let us hope that we never, ever again get into another useless, worthless, bloody war like Afghanistan. Since World War II, we were in Korea, we were in Vietnam, Central America, Iraq, Afghanistan. We all know how well that went. So one of the major things that we have to accomplish as progressives in this country is to never allow any of these military lunatic excursions again, never again. So it's fitting that this event occurred. I remember very well April 30th, 1975. And today we can remember this event as well. No more imperial wars. I've always liked to say that the baby boomers, well, I haven't liked to say it, but it's reality. The baby boomers set out to do two things. We set out to revolutionize the country, the culture, and we set out to end the empire. And so far, we're 1 for 2, but maybe today will mark the end of the empire. And only when we end the empire are we going to be able to accomplish our social, political, ecological, economic goals for justice, for peace, and for prosperity. So I am blown away by the quality of the presentations. This far exceeded our wildest dreams. I mean, we had not a single speaker that was in any way, shape, or form less than stellar. And it's been an amazing, amazing accomplishment. What we have done here, we hope, is to unite, get people out of our silos, both our grain silos and our missile silos, and unified in DC statehood, in election protection and voter engagement, in saving our planet Earth, at least making it possible that we can live here. Our planet Earth will save herself. The question is whether humankind is going to be allowed to continue here. And finally, not finally, but to deal with social justice, homelessness, and poverty. It's been an astounding afternoon. This video will be available at electionprotection2024.org and elsewhere. The first hour will be podcast on the Progressive Radio Network, 5 to 6 p.m. this coming Thursday, but it will be forever available. And on this coming Monday, a week from today at 5 p.m., we will have another of our grassroots emergency election protection coalition meetings. We want, please, everyone, send us your contacts so that we are going to be going on this at least through November 2024. This is both a moment and a movement. And, this is just the first moment in this escalated movement. This has been Joel Siegel's brainchild to get us all unified and together. And it is just an incredibly diverse and powerful experience to sit through.
Harvey and Joel, did you want to hear from a couple of young people at the end too?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. And then we will, our lasagna and spaghetti hour, our pasta hour will continue, and we will allow, as long as Steve Caruso can stay awake and with us to engineer, we'll have as many people raise their hand and speak as possible. So go ahead,
TATANKA. Thank you. Nat Fassian. Natalie, are you still with us? She may have had to go. Or Kaylin Taylor.
TATANKA, can you give us some closing remarks?
Closing thoughts, please, TATANKA.
Sure. Well, I just want to echo what Harvey said. This has been an amazing experience. I want to thank you, everyone, all the moderators, all the speakers, especially all the participants. I want to encourage every moderator to get back to all your speakers and listen. I want to encourage all the speakers to get back to the people you invited and ask them how it went for them. What they loved about it. Is there any improvement? We want to hear your feedback. So please email us and call everybody on leadership. It's clear to me that there is a need for this. It's clear to me. I learned early in my political career that the winning candidate or winning issue is the one that creates the context in which we win, that creates the conversation in which we win. This is one such context. So I do believe we have an experiment going that can be a small idea whose time has come to unite our progressive community, which can translate into legislation in DC. And I'm just filled with gratitude, and I want to thank our creator. I want to thank our ancestors, because we don't do this alone. We know there's no separation in all the universe, and that means not just between we humans, but the plant people, the rock people, the animal people. If we humans can learn to take care of our air and our water and our fire and our soils, we will be taken care of. So that's what, when we say Omatakwias in all our relations, and when we say all the four worlds of Grandmother Earth, we mean, how can we humans live in harmony with Mother Nature? So to that extent, just a final reminder that those of us in California are working on a California Green New Deal that aims to put our state in alignment with that. We're working on a plan that's not just a 30-year plan a la Joe Biden. It's been a 10-year plan, but now we're trying to see if it can be a 5-year plan. And we intend to pass that in 2022 and have that be what we all run for the 2024 elections. That's our dream. Thank you, everyone, for being together.
TATANKA,
Thank
Natalie,
you for leadership.
We've got Natalie.
Oh, Natalie, great. Come on board, Nat.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. It was really informative today. From a young person's perspective, what I heard today a lot was about education, educating ourselves on these issues so we can better educate our community on these issues. And once we're able to do that, we can move forward in an informed manner. So I think that is the golden rule that I learned today from everyone speaking. Like I said, we need to educate so we can mediate like we're doing today, and we can co-create a better future for all of us and our young people as well, moving forward.
Thank you, Natalie. Do you have those first three things that what we're going to do?
I do.
On next steps? Why don't you read them off?
I do. On second Monday of the month, 5 p.m. Eastern time, the National NJR Solidarity Check-in and Deeper Dive Zoom. Announce date and time of the monthly NJR National, that call. We will have a regularly scheduled NJR podcast and a monthly newsletter so we can all know who's doing what.
Great
and
idea.
A press release going out tomorrow announcing the historic formation of this National Justice Roundtable. We'll be working on a National Justice Roundtable website, and there's going to be series, as Harvey has said, of roundtables each month as we go forward. And we are creating a smart ALEC so we can generate our own progressive legislation headed up by Joel Siegel. And we're going to need ongoing feedback as we grow this because we're growing a community. And so I learned from Dolores in the late 60s and early 70s. I learned community organizing from her. We would always build up with 2 or 3 people in a room, build it up to a mass that could go to the city council or it could go to the state, but we would always break down back at the level of the smallest family and community. And her foundation now has 18 Vecinos Unidos throughout, United Neighbors throughout the valley. So we need to keep in touch, listen to our people, grow this forward with what we learn. And with that, I believe we can be an unstoppable force, an idea whose time has come. Aho.
Aho. Aho. Okay. Anybody that we missed that was on the regular list? Joel, I know you had a list of folks you wanted to jump in. Steve Caruso, I hope you can drink some coffee and stay with us for a while. We've got a lot of hands raised. I have put on my grandfather's shirt in honor of the young people. My wife doesn't like to tell people how many grandchildren we have, but we are, I will say, in double figures. So anyway, this is for them. Joel, did you, Steve, I hope you can stay with us, brother. And Joel, you have some folks to announce. We've got hands up from Herschel, Ruth, George, Taylor, Rob, Jeffrey, Mary. So we'll go as far as we possibly can until
Sluggo?
Steve keels over. Yes, Mike.
This is Mike Hirsch. I was supposed to be on the speakers list, but I gave up my spot because I wanted to hear from everybody else.
Oh,
and
you're welcome.
Yeah, and I'm really thrilled that all of our speakers understood that the movement is the thing. The movement's more important than any single person. And as every one of our speakers exemplified, we are building a team. There's no I in team. We're going to win together as a united force. And I just wanted to thank you, Sluggo, for keeping the show going. I knew we were in good hands when we picked you to be our master of ceremonies. You outdid yourself. Joel Siegel, extraordinary work. I've been working with you for many, many years. And this is among the greatest hits of Joel Siegel, which is saying a lot. Thank you so much. Andrea Miller had to move on to another Zoom meeting. I think she lives on Zoom these days. But Andrea Miller, as those who work with her know, is a giant, just an absolute genius in organizing, online, offline, getting people to the polls, the unsung hero of many electoral miracles. Thank you, Andrea Miller and her wonderful team. When Andrea Miller is part of a project, she brings a group of terrific individuals who you will not hear a peep from them, but they will make sure that everything works perfectly. And if people understood how difficult it was, Sluggo and Joel, you and all of our moderators made it look easy. It was not easy. And thank you to everybody who's been with us for this historic event. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm inspired. I'm fired up. I'm ready for some lasagna. So are we ready to stop the recording and dig into our pasta celebration?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Mike. You've been so great. I do want to say I did not realize before I looked in the camera when this started that I am a walking advertisement for global warming here. So and
against nuclear energy.
Yes, and against nuclear weapons or whatever. Joel, it's all you, brother.
Well, first of all, I'm also blown away by all the great speakers. And for every speaker that spoke, there's so many more that will be speaking at the subsequent roundtables, because there will not be one or two leaders. All of you are leaders. This is just the beginning. All I want to say is I love you all. We are a beloved community. We're all an extended family, as Representative John Conyers used to always say. So we want to get to people who did not have a chance to present. We're going to ask that you go for about 3 minutes. And again, it's real simple. What are you working on, and what do we need to do to win whatever it is that you're working on? So I'm going to call on my dear friend, Wendy Lederman from the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. And Wendy represents the best of the best. One of the things that we're being very intentional about is making sure that we not only include people who are in DC in the Beltway, but also all the leaders in 435 congressional districts and 50 states and the territories and our global partners, because we're going to have to be a global movement to transition to 100% clean renewable energy. It's not going to be easy to get India, China, and Russia and the G8 and developing countries to transition. We don't have but about 10 years, maybe less, to get our carbon footprint down. So how we organize will determine whether or not we survive climate change. I know that's hard to put our arms around, but we do have time to cool the planet down, but we cannot do that unless we are unified. Wendy Lederman, the floor is yours, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And wonderful. So much love to you guys. This is amazing. I'll try to be really quick. Okay. And I have so much I want to say. So I feel like it's important to normalize civic engagement for everyone. It should be a responsibility, for taking out the trash, and I kind of see the revolution as happening by a bunch of enlightened but tired individuals, and just making it normal to call your representatives and your commission, and just thinking outside of ourselves, everyday people. Socrates said something like the only time people get involved in politics is when they don't want to be ruled by lesser men or women. So yeah, all of our talents and all of our skills with all of our diversities, we're all puzzle pieces. And the puzzle in itself, when it comes together, is the picture that we want to see for the future. And we really need to just visualize that every day until we manifest it, and hold that vision and be grateful to serve and be a positive in that, and not get stuck in the doom and gloom. Jack Lieberman said, don't mourn, organize, So
Right.
we just really need to hold that picture every day and be grateful. I do kind of want to just say a quick thing about what's going on in Fort Lauderdale. I'm kind of a water protector here just out of default, but it's a microcosm because, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So, and I do want to say about the organizing too is getting the artists and musicians involved, because that's the reason that things are censored, is because they're the ones that really infuse the ideas and people as well. So that's a huge start for the voice of the culture, is to just get everyone engaged. So in Fort Lauderdale, just before COVID, we had a series of sewage spills where we actually had more raw, untreated sewage in the streets and in the rivers than the Gulf had oil in 2011. And the corruption and collusion of our local government was so obnoxious that I started a forum for the Fort Lauderdale Water Crisis Community Forum, just so people could share information if they knew when like the water was safe to go near or drink or anywhere. And so that this has evolved, and this is what ties all of our issues together, right? So now we're looking at like overdevelopment and like saltwater intrusion, erosion, pollution, but then you start seeing these land grabs where all of our infrastructure, all of our land, the last of our land, our green spaces, is being bought up by foreign investors, and they flip a profit while we literally sink away. But they're also taking public land as well, which is just totally a fascist takeover. But the underbelly of it, what really happens is now that we have these land grabs, you have these slumlords that have all these uninhabitable situations. So you have people like me who's actually getting sued by my last landlord because I complained about uninhabitable situations. And it's really disgusting because now in COVID, you have people without toilets and without hot water, and they're being forced out. Rent prices are going up 15% within a year. And it's just because people want to cash in and there's no regulation. You have dirty judges, you have dirty politicians because our votes don't count. And it ends up with a really, really dirty situation. But again, we're not going to mourn, we're going to organize, because the power is in the numbers. All power to the people. The power is in our numbers if we come together and we just create a new way until the old way becomes obsolete. So, yeah, all power to the people.
Wendy, first of all, I'm sorry about what you're going through in terms of your housing. And we know that we're going to have to fight the Supreme Court, which is unbelievably conservative, cannot let the Supreme Court determine public policy that the Congress and the White House should, and the executive branch should be dealing with. But to have millions of people who are about to be evicted during a COVID-19 pandemic is unconscionable. And we are going to have an emergency roundtable on eviction prevention, because we can't leave housing to politicians. We're going to have to take control of this situation. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, by the way. So thank you, Wendy.
Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.
Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia, Solartopia, Solartopia. Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia all over God's green world.
Well, we bit that apple and the garden was lost, and so we had to work to pay the cost. And so we went digging into the ground and started to burn many things we